Welcome to the VoiceMe Podcast, information and advice on the world of voiceover presented by voiceme.co.za, the South African search directory for voice artists and related services. I'm Andrew Sutherland, founder of VoiceMe, and in this episode, I'm talking about how to read a client brief like a producer. Now, before I define what I mean by that, let me tell you about a brief I received not too long ago. We need a warm, conversational read. Please send quote. That's it. That was the brief. No audience, no genre, no category, no script context, no usage details, no clue whether they wanted a sell, a heartfelt narration, a relaxed explainer, or a human being speaking in complete darkness while a committee of 12 people argued in the background about whether the world should be friendly or natural. And yet, from that one line, I was expected to know what they meant. Now, to be fair, sometimes the client doesn't know exactly what they mean either. They know the project needs a voice. They know it needs to sound right. They're under pressure, and they may be dealing with internal approvals, last-minute script changes, budget limitations, and someone higher up the chain saying unhelpful things like, "Can we make it pop a bit more?" So today I want to talk about how to read a brief like a producer. Not like a voice artist waiting for instructions. Not like a freelancer hoping to get the job, but like someone who understands how the whole production puzzle fits together. Because a good voice artist does not just read the words. A good voice artist reads the assignment. A producer is a reader of a different kind. The first big idea I want to put in your head is this. A client brief is not just a list of instructions. It's evidence. It's evidence of what the client understands, evidence of what they haven't yet thought through, evidence of where the risks are, where the misunderstandings are likely to happen, and often evidence of what the project actually needs, even when the brief doesn't say it clearly. A producer reading one short internal video isn't just thinking, right, one video. They're thinking, how short is short? Internal for who? One edit or multiple edits? One approval person or 7? Will this become a series? Has anyone actually timed this script? The mindset we're aiming for is reading beyond the sentence, because your problems as a voice artist usually don't come from the words on the page. They come from what wasn't made clear before you recorded. And there are 4 layers of any brief. When a brief lands in your inbox or your WhatsApp or platform dashboard, there are 4 layers you should be reading for. Layer 1 is the obvious one. What is literally being asked for? Commercial, explainer, IVR, e-learning, corporate video. That's the surface. Layer 2 is the intended effect. What do they want the audience to feel, understand, or do? Trust, urgency, warmth, credibility. 2 briefs can both say conversational and need completely different reads. One might mean don't sound like an announcer, and another might mean premium but still approachable. And a third might mean we're terrified of sounding salesy. Layer 3 is the deliverables. And this is where a lot of artists get caught because some briefs are written as if the performance is the only product. It isn't. The real job can include clean edits, split files, alternate versions, different durations, naming conventions, or audio formatted for a very specific workflow. And if you only read for performance and not for deliverables, you can end up under-quoting and under-preparing before you've even started. And finally, layer 4 is what's missing. What hasn't been said? What hasn't been confirmed? What are they assuming you'll know? What are you assuming they've confirmed? And that's often the most important layer of all. And that's where your producer instincts need to come in. So beware of solving the wrong problem. Before we go further, I want to flag something that I think separates good voice artists from great ones. Sometimes a client asks for a specific sound, but the actual problem is somewhere else entirely. They'll say, we need more energy, but maybe the script is too long, or the music is too flat, or the edit has no pace. They say, make it more conversational, but what they really mean is, the current read sounds generic, or it feels like it's being performed at the listener, not to them. Producers know that the first note is not always the real issue. You can't always solve that on your own, but you can become more intelligent in how you interpret feedback and how you approach your first take. When you understand what the brief is actually trying to achieve, you are far less likely to give a technically correct but communicatively wrong performance. So, start with the goal, not the adjectives. The brief says, warm, conversational, confident, not too salesy, authentic, relatable. That sounds useful on its own, but it often isn't. Those are surface-level adjectives. The more useful question is, what is this voice supposed to achieve? Confident in a corporate investor film means something different from confident in a pharmacy IVR. Conversational in a youth campaign means something very different from conversational in an internal leadership video after a difficult company restructure. So before you obsess over the tone words, identify the communication goal. What is the audience meant to feel, to understand, or do after hearing this voice? That question clears up a lot, because the same adjective can lead to wildly different performance choices depending on the context. And if the context isn't in the brief, that may be the first thing you need to ask for. So read the script and the brief together. Don't read the brief first, decide what they mean, and then look at the script later. And don't read the script in isolation either. The two need to be interpreted together. A brief might say, friendly and upbeat, but the script may be full of technical terms and serious subject matter that needs more control than enthusiasm. The brief might say premium and polished, but the copy is clearly written for a relaxed, direct-to-consumer digital ad. The brief might say conversational, but the script is full of legal disclaimers that need very careful emphasis. The script tells you what is possible. The brief tells you what is intended. And you need both. And when they contradict each other, don't ignore that. That contradiction is useful. It tells you there's likely some confusion upstream, and it means you should probably ask your client. Next, I want to talk about red flags, timing, and the right questions to ask. Certain phrases in a brief should make you slow down and look more carefully. Not panic, just slow down. Things like, this should only take a few minutes. Small online use only. We're still finalizing the script. Can you just do a few options? We may use it across some more channels. We need it urgently. None of these automatically means the client is going to be a problem, but they often mean the project needs more definition before you proceed. Just for social media can still mean paid ads. A few options can become 6 full performance directions. Urgent can mean their planning failed and now your calm is expected to rescue it. The same thing applies to timing. A lot of briefs don't mention time properly. They just send the script and expect magic. But timing changes everything. A 15-second script has almost no room for indulgence. A training module needs clean, modular pacing. A premium brand film wants room to land emotionally. So one of the first things you should do when a script arrives is assess whether the copy length and likely runtime actually make sense. And if they don't, raise it early with your client. And how you raise it with them also matters. Don't just say, this script is too long. Instead, something along the lines of, just a quick note, at a natural pace, this script feels like it may run over 30 seconds. I'm happy to record to target timing, but if you'd like it to breathe and still land clearly, the copy may benefit from a slight trim. This is helpful, calm, professional, and solution-focused. And speaking of which, smart, focused, clarifying questions are not a sign of weakness. What makes you look inexperienced is confidently recording the wrong thing because you were too scared to ask. So here's a few questions that can save an entire job. Who is the intended audience? Is this internal only or public facing? Where will this be used and for how long? Is the script locked or should we expect amendments? Would you like one clean master file or split files? And who is giving the final approval? Even one or two of those asked at the right time can make the entire workflow smoother. So let's move on. The brief tells you about the client, not just the project. This one is subtle, but it's also very real. The way a brief is written tells you something about the working style of the people behind it. A very detailed brief may suggest an organized producer, an experienced agency, or a client who's been burned before. A vague brief may suggest speed, internal pressure, or a project still being shaped in real time. A brief full of emotional adjectives but few practical details may signal strong opinions but weak production structure. Lots of technical detail with no audience insight suggests the workflow is defined but the communication thinking is underdeveloped. So why does any of that matter? Because it helps you manage the job better. If the client sounds organized, you may not need to over-explain any concerns. If they sound unsure, you may need to guide them more. If they sound rushed, you may want to confirm scope in writing. And if they seem approval-heavy, clearly labeled take options will serve them well. You're not judging them, you're just reading the room before entering it. The brief is also telling you how to quote. You shouldn't only be quoting on number of scripts or session time. Your quote should be based on the whole job. A good brief will tell you about usage, complexity, admin, versions, delivery structure, urgency, revision risk, and likely follow-ups. If you miss those clues, your quote may look fine at the start and terrible by the end. And this happens all the time. A voice artist might quote for a 2-minute script. Then the job turns out to include 3 approval rounds, 5 split files, 2 alternate versions, an urgent overnight turnaround, and a revised end frame after sign-off. Now the quote is upside down, and the artist ends up feeling trapped or afraid to charge more because they didn't clarify the shape of the work early enough. The brief is creative information, but it's also commercial information, so treat it that way. And while we're on it, learn to spot hidden usage clues. If the script includes a call to action like shop now or visit our website today, that may suggest commercial use. If it mentions cut downs, multiple durations, or platform versions, that may point to paid digital or campaign rollout. If usage isn't clear in the brief, it needs clarification. That's not being awkward, that is being professional. Let's also talk about reference reads, because these often come up in briefs where they send you a video or a previous ad that maybe someone else has done. Clients often send these videos with notes like something like this. That can be helpful, or it can lead you completely in the wrong direction. Sometimes the reference is being shared for tone, most of the time. Sometimes it's being shared for pace. Sometimes for brand feel. Sometimes because the client likes the ad but has no idea specifically what they like about it. And sometimes they want you to replicate a read so closely it starts becoming creatively impossible. So when a reference comes in on a brief, don't assume it means you have to mimic that. Listen for what problem it's solving. Is it the relaxed delivery, the sharper smile, the authority, the modern cadence? That's the useful layer. A question that opens things up nicely is, thanks, that reference is helpful. Is it mainly the tone and energy you'd like me to draw from, or are there specific pacing or attitude elements you'd like me to lean into as well? That invites clarity from your client. It also reminds the client that you are interpreting, not copying. So here's a quick practical working checklist to have mentally available when any brief or job comes in. What is the project and what is it for? Who's listening and what are they meant to feel, know, or do? Where will this audio be used and for how long? What kind of tone is actually needed beyond the adjectives? Is there a target runtime and does the copy match it? Is the script final? Are there pronunciation issues, brand terms, or legal lines? What exactly am I delivering? One file? Split files? Alternative takes? Processed? Unprocessed? Who signs off? And what is the revision risk? And what has not yet been clarified? Train yourself to scan those questions quickly and you will make better decisions, quote more accurately, and feel a lot more grounded. Uncertainty when quoting feels stressful when it's still vague. So once you name it, it becomes something you can manage. Let's walk through a real example. So imagine you receive this brief. Hi. We have a 90-second corporate video looking for a warm, conversational, trustworthy mail read. Please quote, needs to be done tomorrow. Sounds simple enough? Now let's read it like a producer. Corporate video for what purpose? Internal staff morale? Investor relations, brand profile, recruitment, conference opener? Warm and conversational for which audience? Existing clients? New prospective clients? Internal employees, company stakeholders. Done tomorrow means what exactly? Recorded tomorrow, delivered by tomorrow morning, and any room for revisions. What file delivery? Single polished file, dry wave file, split by paragraph. What are we looking for? Is the 90 seconds based on timed copy or just a rough guess? You may not need to ask every one of those. But by asking even a few, you immediately improve your ability to quote accurately and perform effectively. So your response might be something like, "Thanks, happy to assist. Before I quote, could you confirm whether the video is internal or public-facing, whether the usage is organic or paid, and whether you'd like a single polished file or a clean dry read for post? If there are any brand names or pronunciation notes, feel free to send those through too." Calm, professional, useful. And it tells the client you know what actually matters. I just want to pause here and do a note specifically for the South African market. Everything I've covered applies universally, but it applies with some extra weight in South Africa. Our market is wonderfully diverse and sometimes wonderfully messy. Briefs arrive from agencies in Joburg, producers in Cape Town, corporates in Durban, startups with no production experience, and international teams trying to localize content without fully understanding the nuance. Language matters, accent matters, cultural context matters, and the person sending the brief is often not the only one influencing the outcome. That means assumptions can multiply very quickly, which is exactly why the producer mindset approach to reading briefs matters here. Not to make things more complicated, but to make them smoother. But let's also not forget the artistic side of all this, because this is not just about admin. When you understand the brief properly, you know who you're talking to, you know why the message matters, you know where the emphasis belongs, you know whether to sound like a guide, a peer, a presenter, a partner, or a calm authority. That gives the read much more integrity. It stops you making generic, nice-sounding choices and helps you make useful choices. And useful choices book. Useful choices also get approved faster. So a final thought. Don't read the brief like a box-ticking exercise. Read it like a map, a warning system, and a clue trail. The brief is not just telling you what to say, it's telling you what kind of job this is, what kind of client this is, what kind of risk sits inside the project, and what kind of professional you need to be in order to handle it well. Yes, clients want a good voice, but they also want someone who gets it. When you can read a brief properly, you're no longer just reacting to instructions. You're helping carry the job. And that's a different level of value and where more voice artists need to aim. And that's also all for this week's episode. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me and my support team at support@voiceme.co.za or give me a call on 0861 VoiceMe, that's 0861 864 2363 if you're in South Africa. To sign up for a VoiceMe profile, register from the homepage at voiceme.co.za, and as always, like, follow, and engage with VoiceMe and each other on @VoiceMeSA on all social networks. If you liked this episode, please like, share, subscribe, turn on automatic downloads, or click the bell icon so you don't miss our next one. I'm Andrew Sutherland, and that's it from me here at VoiceMe for this week. Cheers for now.